We will be moving forward with our next panel on tech for social good. We'll explore how tech is being used for social good. And in this panel, we'll take a look at initiatives using blockchain on projects from pharmaceuticals to women and sports. I would like to introduce our moderator for this panel, Ms. Jenna Pilgrim. Jenna is the Director of Partnerships and Business Development at Block Inc., a multi-purpose blockchain company dedicated to building software that supports a multi-chain, multi-network, and multi-token world. That's a mouthful. Jenna is also the co-founder and COO of Streambed Media, an early-age technology-powered media startup. Formerly, she helped to found the multi-million-dollar Blockchain Research Institute in Toronto as its Director of Business Development. Jenna holds a BBA in finance from Trent University and is a certified Bitcoin professional. That's a new thing, right? Yes, okay. I don't see that in my academic credential list, so I think I'm going to go after it next. Jenna co-founded her first company when she was just 18 years of age, and I'm going to welcome Jenna to the stage. Round of applause, and she'll introduce the rest of the panel to you.
Hi, everyone. So if I can just invite my panelists to come up, and I'll kind of introduce them while they're making their way up here. So we have Ceit Butler, who is a professor and the program coordinator of the blockchain program here at George Brown. And then we have Bassem, who is business operations at ChainSafe. We have Alishba Imran, who is an innovator at the Knowledge Society. And although I founded my first company when I was 18, she is just 15 years old and is a new recipient of the Blockchain Young Innovators Award last night at a big gala. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And then we're joined by Maria Toorpakai Wazir, who is from the Maria Toorpakai Wazir Foundation. Yeah, gotcha. Awesome. So thanks so much for joining us. This panel is specifically on blockchain for social good, and I know we have a very diverse, obviously, expertise, but also, I guess, diverse projects being represented here. So, no one here wants to hear me drone on about reading all of your bios. So can we just go down the line and take about 2 or 3 minutes and just describe who you are, what how you got into the whole blockchain space, what your, I guess, light bulb moment was when you knew that this blockchain thing was like going to be a thing, and then how your solution is really getting close to that blockchain for social good or tech for social good angle. So, Ceit, you want to start with you?
So I got into the blockchain space in late 2012. I met some very interesting people and lived on a boat for a year. It was a very cool boat with its own private fiber line full of discrete computers, and they introduced me to computer science and Bitcoin. I didn't have the money to buy Bitcoin or the hardware to mine it, but I saw the potential of the technology, so I began studying computer science to gain the knowledge to be able to leverage it. So I've kind of been quietly in the space for the past 6 years. I've volunteered with some non-for-profit projects, and I guess the project I'm working on now is where we want to design something for Maria's foundation. So I guess we should hear about her story first before we launch into the tech side of that.
Sure. So let's roll with that and go with Maria next.
My name is Maria Toorpakai, and I'm from the tribal regions of Pakistan on Afghanistan border. I founded Maria Toorpakai Foundation. It is inspired by my story. I am an athlete. I started playing squash professionally and the only girl who started playing sports from that region. And I had to pretend for years as a boy. My name was Genghis Khan. So nobody knew that I was a girl, and it could have been very dangerous. So and I ended up in sports accidentally, I would say, because of how I grew up in that region. But the way I realized how girls are treated differently than the boys, and all the girls definitely need opportunities, and the opportunities I had Today I'm here among you all is because of sports. It introduced me to the rest of the world and educated me practically and changed me from inside out. So that's the Maria Toorpakai Foundation that I want everyone to have the same opportunities that I have.
Yeah, definitely. That's inspiring. Can you describe a little bit more about what you're working on with Ceit, or what the project is there?
So I know nothing. I mean, nothing about blockchain. But I feel that there are a lot of people, a lot of young girls who should be playing sports and getting education. And how can we reach out to them with all the technology that is available? And you would have heard that a lot of foundation, when they raise funds, mostly it goes into the operational side. How can we use that into the actual cause, going towards the actual cause? So George Brown School of Design, they started helping me with this. I gave them all those problems, that these are the issues that girls face on every level. And how can we reach out to them, support them, make them feel safer, and also give them all the opportunities. So Xavier was one of the professor whose team got together, the students, and they started working on creating an online community so we can provide all the online courses. And then Ceit came into that, introduced the blockchain. How can we use the point system and digital currency so we can provide them the support that they need?
Yeah, I think it's the correlation between education and technology is a really, really interesting one. So we'll come back to that later. So Bassem, you want to give us a little bit of an overview of ChainSafe and sort of how you ended up here today?
Yeah, it's actually a very interesting story that I usually love to tell. I used to actually live in Vancouver in 2016, and I worked at a nonprofit that helped integrate refugees within the local communities. But one day I actually came to visit in Toronto. I visited some friends, and I saw the first mining rig for Ethereum. And don't worry if you don't know what that is, but this is my first interaction with blockchain. And so I started asking questions. What is blockchain? What is happening here? How are you just making money out of your computer? So I went back to Vancouver with a lot of unanswered questions. And I started doing a lot of research into what is this? Why is it something that not so many people know about? And why is Bitcoin so expensive at this point? And at some point, it kind of hit me, this light bulb. I told myself, this is really the technology for the future. And as somebody who is very passionate about using technology for social good, it became apparent to me without doubt that the blockchain technology has a lot of potential to change the world, to empower individuals, not only here, but all over the world, and especially in marginalized communities and people that don't have access to a lot of basic services that they need. And so I packed my stuff and I moved to Toronto, where I started working with my friends on their projects, and that turned out to be ChainSafe in the end. So that's really how I got into that, and I'm still as passionate about it, if not more, than before.
And then can you describe a little bit about what specifically ChainSafe is working on, or how it really fits into that social good angle?
Yeah, so what ChainSafe is working on a bunch of projects. We are a for-profit company, we are a firm, but at the same time we do a lot of open source work. The core of our work is essentially working to improve the infrastructure, the blockchain infrastructure that we have. Probably a lot of you know, how many of you have used blockchain or have interacted with blockchain here? So I see like a few hands, and that's exactly the problem we are trying to solve. We are working on the infrastructure of public blockchains that we believe will empower individuals. So we work with foundations like the Ethereum Foundation, which was founded here in Toronto, as well as other foundations that are helping making blockchain more accessible to the average person without needing any technological experience, really.
For sure. That's amazing. I think access is a really, obviously a really big part about what this new era of the internet, really, what this new era of infrastructure really means for normal people. Because at the end of the day, not everyone needs to be a bank. Not everyone needs to be create their own, custody solutions or wallets or whatever. So it's really good to see that kind of infrastructure being built. Alishba, do you want to give a little overview of your project and how it fits into the social good angle?
Yeah, so I actually got into blockchain, I'd say around a year ago when I joined a program called the Knowledge Society, which is basically like a human accelerator program, but for youth. So they're teaching us about some of the most emerging technologies like artificial intelligence and blockchain and how we can leverage them to solve really important problems. So at first I had no idea what blockchain was. I just knew that it had something to do with crypto, and all of a sudden I just wasn't that interested in that. So kind of through this program, I learned a little bit more about what the technology was and how I can actually use it. And so we had a session at one of our cohorts, and then I just got to learn a little bit more about it. And that's kind of where the interest started to build up. And it just kind of happened that things one after the other. I just read a bunch of articles about it. And then I also read Alex's and Don Tapscott's book on blockchain. And that kind of brought a different perspective for me. And I think that was much needed because I didn't really find much interest in this industry. But after reading that, I realized that this can actually be a technology that can be used to solve really important problems. And then that winter, I actually visited my house back in Pakistan. And I found out that my cousin was fatally ill because he had consumed a counterfeit medicine. And so I didn't know that was such a huge issue. And in this case, he was able to afford proper medicine, but he didn't even know that the medicine he was consuming was not authentic and wasn't the real one. And that was just crazy to me. Like, we don't even know where our drugs are coming from and who's producing them. And that was just an issue that I got really passionate about. And so blockchain was in the back of my mind, and this issue was too. So I actually just went super deeper into that, and I found a few projects that are working in this space. And then I was also interested in the idea of letting people in these areas in developing countries like India and areas in Africa where people just have really poor infrastructure. So their healthcare system is just not very versatile in terms of the infrastructure and the way that they're actually making their transactions happen. So a lot of the people don't have their data with them. And that's just crazy that people don't know what their information is and they don't have control over who they want to share that with, especially in these areas where there's poor infrastructure. And so that's when I got really interested in these two ideas. And that's when I started to create a project called Honest Blocks, which I'm still working on. And what it hopes to do is basically help people in these developing countries be able to manage their healthcare data and put it onto this ledger, and at the same time also be able to track where their products are coming from, like medicine and different drugs. So that's just a little bit of an overview of how that works. Yeah. Awesome.
So that and that kind of addresses that last mile piece as well, because you're interacting directly with the consumer. So this is a really interesting mix of people on this panel, all the way from infrastructure to education to consumer apps. So I'm happy to be here with all of you today. So obviously we know that technology is not going to solve all of the world's problems. Like, technology doesn't create prosperity, people do. So I think the biggest, or one of the biggest barriers in implementing technology from a social good angle is that last mile, I guess. So from a consumer perspective, Bassem, how are you seeing the kind of the uptake in the market of people wanting to be involved or even wanting to understand more about the blockchain?
I think it is slowly going there. I think it was unfortunate that most people that heard of blockchain heard of it through cryptocurrency, which is not something that we like to focus on, or we like the people to focus on, because blockchain is not really just a tool for people to make money fast, and that has been proven that it was just a hype. Some people made money, some people didn't. But really for us, I personally believe, and a lot of people in the industry believe, that we want it to happen slowly and organically. We don't think blockchains are ready yet, especially public blockchains, which we focus on. We are working with a lot of projects. I mean, even with Ceit at George Brown, to educate people, to teach people more. We run a lot of workshops. We partnered with also with Ryerson University and University of Toronto Blockchain Group. We try to reach students as much as possible to get to support those who are interested, to actually give them all the tools we need. For example, we sponsored a hackathon at York, which was designed to address environmental issues using blockchain. So we told people, you will get a prize if you actually solve an environmental problem on the blockchain. And the amount of the level of creativity that you see is amazing. But yet we do think that it's going to take probably 4 to 5 years for public blockchains to be ready for people to adopt them. And we are happy with the slow but organic growth that the industry is getting.
For sure, for sure. So in that I guess same vein, Maria, do you want to talk a little bit more about I guess not necessarily the implementation angle, but I guess the ability for developing nations to really take a leadership role in the implementation of new technologies, because obviously in developing nations is easy or not. I don't want to say easier is not the right word. It's there's a grand opportunity for developing nations to really take a step here. So that one actually probably could be Maria or Alishba actually.
Well, I think young generation, they really want to get into this technology. And in the developing world, there are so many issues. If you look at the SDGs, we haven't achieved them. We are not even close to that. There are health issues, there are educational problems. The system is not working that much. And even the government also, technology, here you see it's everywhere. Everything is somehow, somewhere it's involved, technology. But back home, even if you look at the immigration, you look at the simple banking systems, everything, it's way behind from here. And then you look at the phones, when you hand over a phone to someone who is not very well educated, it can be dangerous. The use, you have to educate the young people how to use technology and how they can benefit from it. It's important. So, but there are opportunities definitely with the young people, and we have 70% of youth in those developing world, and we see that around 52% of women there out of all the population, and then you see that women are mostly illiterate, I would say. They can't even read and write, and the mothers are usually the first teacher. So what happens, our youth is when they are growing up, they don't get the proper training, proper education. They're not brought up properly. And now you see with all the social media and all the the devices and the technology, it's just too much overwhelming for them. And they don't know what to do and how to do, where to go with it. So we are also facing a lot of terrorism and extremism, and anyone can be brainwashed easily. It's because of the ignorance and growing population. Both of them are like a bomb itself. So I feel that sports is a huge solution for those countries to tackle the terrorism and extremism, because we need to engage the youth into positive activity, to keep them engaged into such activities that can keep them away from negativity, so they can, rather than getting into drugs and rather than getting into, falling prey for any terrorism, they can see better opportunities, a brighter future through sports. not only through sports, but also the technology that we want to involve in there. It's also very important. It will open their mind that there's a world exists beyond that rather than only this.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Should I do something to add?
Yeah, so I think I would say there's actually two things. I think the first thing is like the environment that people grow up in. I think if you break down a lot of the big issues that we have in our world right now, a lot of them come from the environment that people grow up in. And I think if we look at all of these countries that don't have these resources, it's because of the environment that these children are growing up in. So I think if anything, we actually need people who are working on building that infrastructure and solving those issues. We have so many kids that are living in slums that don't even have houses. So how are we even expecting them to go to school and be educated? So I think part of it is we need people who are actually solving these issues that are helping create more accessibility and also help create solutions that are more scalable. Because we have a lot of solutions coming out right now, but a lot of the people are either economically incentivized or socially incentivized. But I think in order to solve this problem, we need a company that's able to do both. So you're economically and you're socially incentivized. And that's where a lot of the golden solutions will come. And then the second thing, just speaking from my personal experience, I think is education. Even when I think about my education, I think that it's so totally lacking when it comes to technology. And I think in order for us to create the future generation and expect kids to do more, we just need to have, first of all, just expect more from them. We need to have higher standards for people that are going to school, because you can't expect them to do something that they're not really expected of, or they're not able to go above that because the line for them to meet is just so low. So I think a lot of it comes from changing the standards that we have in school, and then also just changing the narrative of school. Why are people going to school? It shouldn't be just to get grades and just to climb up the ladder to get into the best university. It should actually be to gain some kind of experience and learn about these emerging technologies. So another aspect of it is we need to actually implement the learning of these emerging technologies into the lives of students. Because I think when it comes to technology, a lot of people don't realize the potential that it can hold. We just think about it as our cell phone or our laptop and the internet, but there's actually so much more. There's things like artificial intelligence where you can literally do so much, and you can actually use these as tools to solve really important problems. And I don't think we have enough people who are trained to actually do that right now. And because of the culture that we have, students aren't able to see that far ahead. All they're seeing school as is just marks. And I think really to change the narrative of technology and making it more adaptable for students, we have to start to integrate this into our curriculum and get more people to actually talk about it, integrate it into our curriculum, and also just change the way that our culture is working in schools right now, because it's not creating growth. It's actually just degrading the students' abilities for them to reach their full potential.
For sure, for sure. I think that's a really good segue into the really important role that obviously George Brown is playing in this space. So, Ceit, do you want to talk a little bit more about the program at George Brown and about how you are, I guess, educating the next generation of students, but also there's a significant focus, especially in the latest budget just came out, provincial budget. And it had a significant investment into retraining. So obviously there's an aging workforce, there's more and more people coming into the market, but especially in the Canadian market, jobs are disappearing. So how is an institution like George Brown really focusing on training, retraining, and I guess framing the narrative, as Alishba was saying?
Yeah, so advancing technological literacy is so important just worldwide. I mean, we're in the middle of the next industrial revolution, and it's digital, right? The economic growth of a nation is no longer tied to the natural resources that you can pull out of the ground or your ability to conquer other nations and take their natural resources. It's all about data now. If you have a device that can access the internet and the knowledge to use it, you can create an income from that. I think that George Brown College, the reason that I joined and I came on last year is there's a really forward-thinking vision for changing the education system It's not about theoretical knowledge, it's about applied knowledge and hands-on skills. And they want to be at the forefront of cutting-edge innovative technologies. This blockchain program we developed over last summer and it launched in September. We're working on the creation of a new applied AI solutions program that will be launching, we're hoping, January of next year. An IoT program is coming after that, augmented reality, virtual reality, cloud computing. It's all about giving people employable skills for this new job market that exists.
For sure. And I think one of the big misconceptions there is that everyone needs to be a developer. They don't. Obviously, this panel is a perfect example of that. I'm not a developer. I know my way around a blockchain, but I can't build one. But I think Bassem, do you want to just comment on sort of the bridge between technology and these other emerging job opportunities in obviously incentivizing populations to participate in a community would require people with many different kinds of skills. So do you want to just sort of comment on how you and how ChainSafe are really tackling that problem?
Yeah, so what we are, I agree with you. Not everyone needs to be a developer, and I think about that a lot because a lot of times I find myself thinking that, okay, I need to learn more coding, I need to learn more, I need to be able to understand exactly how this blockchain is being built. And while after interacting with it for so long, you kind of learn how to build it or build part of it and how to integrate it with other things. One of the things that we are doing at ChainSafe is building things for people so that they don't have to build everything from scratch. And the reason why we are so passionate about public blockchains and using open source code is that whatever we build, whatever we put on there is public and freely available for everyone to use. If we have built a bridge that connects one blockchain to another, there is no reason why we have to keep this for ourselves. There is no reason why somebody else could not use it. And this information is not public yet, but we are working on a project that would allow not only developers but any kind of person to start and deploy a blockchain within a few clicks of a button. Because I think this would be really the starting point for having the average person who has an idea, who is passionate about something, or who has recognized blockchain as a potential solution or platform for them to use to implement a certain solution. And we are trying day and night to make that accessible for them within a few clicks and not necessarily having to have all that knowledge. It is more relevant to be a developer today than in the future. But again, a lot of these things are being built. They are built one time, they're being maintained, but then the rest is going to be opening up for everyone to actually use and deploy.
For sure. And I think a big part of that also is investment. So I want to transition a little bit into, obviously in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of government funds or new government grants for technology and new companies and young learning and retraining and all kinds of things. So Maria, do you want to comment a little bit around either, I want to say access to capital for tech for social good, because I think there's like a sort of not a hiccup in the narrative, but there's this inherent inherent thought that if a project is really good for the world, that it can't be profitable. But I don't think that's the case at all. So do you want to just comment on, I guess, access to capital or the any experiences you've had with NGOs or governments investing in technology solutions for social good?
Sorry, I got a little bit confused with your question. Can you explain a bit?
Yeah, sure. So I'm just talking about like the I guess your interactions with other organizations or collaborations that you may have had, and how not what your investment strategy is, but how do you get people interested enough in your project to get them to invest or participate?
Mm-hmm. So that's what we are exploring. And, it's traditional ways, you have on the ground, you have a team who would just, do their, contact people and organize the educational workshops or training camps and, facilitate them with sporting goods. But using technology and using an online community kind of, that we are doing and the blockchain, we want to create on like a point system. So any girl who feel that she has the potential or she wants to do something in life, she can just go online and she can go through, by completing different courses, she can get points and she can access different, she can know about, what's happening around her, where she can go, where it's safe, all those different, she would be given all those information there. And that way the parents are also feel more safer, her identity will be safe. And at the same time, with those point systems, she can get a lot of, she can get the support that she needs. It can be sporting equipment, it can be airline tickets, it can be scholarships, things like that. So, invitation to different workshops and stuff like that. So they are, at the same time, they have to go through those different levels to achieve that. But we are in the process of exploring that system right now and that online community. And I expressed all the problems, explained all the problems to the team. And I said, a lot of girls are scared for their identities, and some girls, they want to play sports or they want to go to schools, but their parents can't afford, or their parents don't want them to go. So where they can start, and or to get the equipment, when they get free equipment, they're somehow it's a beginning, it's a start. So so something I feel that, I want people here to help me with that. You have the expertise with that technology side and the blockchain and the developing side. And this is the issue that I'm facing. And I really, really want to see a lot more girls to be able to play sports, be safe and be supported, and find all the solutions there, and the community that should be very supportive. I want them to connect to to the rest of the world rather than being isolated and feel very deprived and not feeling isolated. So you can help me with that, developing that kind of system that can help me achieve that. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that the pieces you were talking about the community and bringing people together to really learn from one another is an awesome way to I guess, incentivize a community to then grow a movement, and then you can grow into a bigger
right.
Piece.
I mean, I have been through myself, I've been through a lot. I have seen even the government, even the military, they have very, they feel that women is so inferior. If that kind of mentality you find on a huge level, and then you find in organizations, or associations that, you're playing sports and girls feel they're harassed, they're abused, but they don't know who to reach out, and all their support is taken away from them, and the parents think that they shouldn't allow their girls to go to schools or go to, to play sports. It's a wastage of time. I'm just trying to create how can we support them so they can be empowered and they can find their leadership in their communities. And rather than going through the system, they can come above the system.
Wow, that was amazing. So that, but to keep, I guess, to stay on that community vein, I know the Ethereum community obviously has a huge following. There's, all kinds of development happening. There's lots of money flowing into that space. I know, Bassem, you said that you did a little bit of work with the Ethereum Foundation and building that kind of tooling for that. So do you want to talk a little bit about the community there and about, I guess, their appetite for social good projects versus, building a new electronic trading infrastructure or some sort of, other general applications?
Yeah, just a little bit of context for those who don't know. Ethereum was founded by Vitalik Buterin, who is from Toronto. He was 19 when he founded it. And it became, right now, it's the second most valuable blockchain on the market after Bitcoin. And I think this is, when talking about funding, this is really how a lot of us were able to exist as companies. A lot of young people were able to start these projects was because the Ethereum Foundation had a lot of money, and their mission was to create a public blockchain that is accessible to everyone, that empowers the individual, that gives sovereignty to the individual, so you can have control over your money and have control over your data, and even like get paid for sharing your data, as opposed to letting multi-billion-dollar companies make more billions off of your data. For us at ChainSafe, we are actually working toward on the second generation for Ethereum, called Ethereum 2.0. And we are building one of their implementations in JavaScript right now, and I don't think this would be possible without any funding. At ChainSafe, we have we do a lot of client work, and this is what positions us to actually contribute to the community without expecting anything in return. So we did a lot of research and development to contribute to the community, but I can't deny that the Ethereum Foundation has been very helpful to us. They are always ready to support all kinds of organizations and all kinds of projects. And the average age at ChainSafe is probably 23, 24. It's a bunch of young people who are passionate about the future. And to be able to get funding, like we tried, let me give you an example. We tried to get funding from the government once. And the process would take an average of probably like 6 months to a year.
It's horrendous.
To get an application in, while when we reach the Ethereum Foundation, you can expect to have an answer or get your money within a week or two, and it's a simple crypto transaction, and that's really the environment we're working in, and everything is public. Everybody can see that we got the money. Everybody can track where this money is going, and we can prove to everyone that we are actually all of this money is going towards developing the second generation of Ethereum, because we believe that this is going to empower individuals all over the world in the future. And yeah, I think we were just lucky that some young people invented such great projects that were able to fund themselves without having to wait for venture capitalists or governments or any other entity to help them.
For sure, for sure. Speaking of inspiring young people, Alishba, do you want to talk a little bit about, I guess, the Knowledge Society and how new projects are formed and how I guess your project is then going to move forward from here?
Yeah, so I actually really like the culture at the Knowledge Society. I think that a lot of the young kids that are there are probably going to be like the friends that you have that you're going to be creating here are probably going to be like your next co-founders. So a lot of the people are working on their own startups, and a lot of us end up just working with each other, creating a project with other companies. So it's actually a really great environment. And going back to my last point, I think that's the exact environment that we need to create in school, so that people are working together, not against each other. And I think that's something that's definitely going to be vital moving forward. In terms of my project, I've currently actually partnered with a doctor in India to help develop the pharmaceutical aspect of the project. And I have a few other developers that have helped me with it, but most of the projects I've built myself on Hyperledger Fabric, which is another environment on blockchain. But I think moving forward, I've obviously applied to a few grants because I'm really interested in moving this project forward and seeing how we can really take this forward. But I think, again, adding on to your point, I think a lot of the great companies will be companies that have that social and economic incentive. And I definitely know that if I'm going to pursue this, I think I want to be able to get that incentive and kind of get that support. But I think when we think about a lot of developing countries, a lot of them have politics that are taking over innovation from happening. And what people are trying to do, a lot of the companies that are out there right now are kind of just wrapping their solutions around the politics. And I think that's just not the right way to do it. I don't think we should be wrapping our solutions around politics that's already there. Because it's kind of like if you have a poor infrastructure, building a solution on top of it isn't going to be much beneficial if the infrastructure itself is not efficient. So I definitely think like in order for us to create those really good solutions, we need to be able to break through the politics and get government to be more involved in technology, be more involved in innovation, and be more open to funding projects like these. I think it just needs to become a bigger priority for us. And I think it will moving forward because of the way that we can use this to solve such big problems that even the government is facing and that are big priorities for them. So I think that's one way that we can kind of get the government to weave into these solutions and help us. And that's a change that I'm also interested in creating is how can I get the government to support me? Especially with something like with supply chain management, I think you definitely need the support of the country itself. And the kind of the laws and regulations play a huge role in the way and in the kind of freedom that you can have with your project. So in order to do that, especially in these countries where the politics might be a little bit more constraining to a project like mine, I think it's definitely something that I want to work on to help create that partnership within governments and help them see the potential that blockchain and so many other technologies like machine learning, nanotechnology, genomics can actually help in their healthcare and different sectors. Yeah.
For sure. That like public-private collaboration is one that we've seen work time and time again. Ceit, do you want to talk a little bit about that kind of the interaction between obviously George Brown is a public institution, you're government funded. How did this program come about? Because it's amazing. It is the first. I think it's the first one in Canada, if not the first. I don't think North America, but Canada at least.
So I know that there are other schools that have added business, legal, kind of fintech-based blockchain, but this could be the first blockchain development program in North America offered by a post-secondary institution. So the process starts with a program advisory committee. So the college brings in people from the industry, and that's how I got here. It was I think it was almost a year ago this month. And you start with input from the industry on what skills are missing, what are the gaps that they're seeing, what would they like a qualified applicant's resume to look like. So there's a lot of industry input that goes into creating the program. So you're actually being taught skills that are going to be useful when you come out the other side. So there's a big industry partnership.
For sure, definitely. So I want to make sure we leave some time for questions. I would just like to go down the line and just give the audience, I guess, one key takeaway that they can, a key takeaway of some way that they can help. Obviously, blockchains are collaborative software. If you build a blockchain by yourself, it's not a blockchain. You obviously need to incentivize the community to participate. So all of you have self-selected to decide that you want to learn more about this topic. So panelists, if you can just share with the audience one way that they can, it could be with your project particularly or in the industry in general, one key thing that they can take away from this to say, this is a way that I can help.
There are lots of great blockchain meetups in the city, right? Go to a meetup, find a great project that someone's working on. Look on GitHub. Most of these projects are open source. Anybody can contribute to it. Just add your knowledge, add your information, join the community.
I agree with Ceit, and I would say on top of that, go to hackathons. What you can learn in a hackathon, you probably would need 6 months to learn outside of a hackathon. But the other thing is something that has helped me a lot in my life, and I think I didn't know until I did it, is like you'll be surprised by the number of people who are willing to be out there to help you. So I would really encourage you, whenever you are in doubt, just reach out to someone. And you would be surprised, chances are they will be more than willing to help you in whatever it is that you need help with. And that's really, because again, you can never do everything on your own. You always need support from others. And there are millions of people out there who are just waiting for you to ask, and they will be more than happy to help you. So you have an entire community around you that is willing to help and support. So do take advantage of that, I would say.
I definitely say just be knowledgeable, like go out there and actually learn. Even if this is something that you don't see yourself actually pursuing or you don't want to go too deep into, I think it's always so good to learn on your own. And this was the same thing with me a year ago, where I never thought that I could actually learn about these technologies and I'd be at a point where I could talk about them and I could actually build and develop these technologies. And I think that's what is the kind of mindset that so many people in this room and so many people around the world have. And I think we need to change that. We just all need to be able to have a more active mindset. We need to be able to think that whatever you can do, you actually can do. It's literally most of the time, the things you're not doing is just yourself constraining you. So I think the second that you realize that, it's going to be life-changing, because whether it's blockchain or any industry, like you can do whatever you want and you can learn, and you'll be crazy to find that there's so many resources out there, and it's just a click away for you to be able to learn and gain the knowledge of people before you. That's something that I've been doing so much, is just looking at leaders and CEOs that have come before me, people like Elon Musk and like Naval that I really look up to. These are like entrepreneurs that are doing such great things and like changing the world. They spent like X amount of years trying to learn the things that they've learned. And the best thing that you can do is just learn that in a matter of seconds. And that's like instant knowledge right there, which is crazy. It's just like, people don't realize that the internet is such a big tool. And then after you realize that, you actually have so much more power to realize what you like and what you don't like. And that's when you're really going to start to change the world. And I think that's the biggest point for me, was learn from others and don't be afraid to ask for advice and talk to people. So get out there, talk to people, and use the resources that you have.
I think that in the world we see the balance is a little bit off when it comes to rights, when it comes to technology sharing, or resources, knowledge. And we know the more we share knowledge, the more it grows, right? Or technology we should share. So here we see in the Western world, people are way more educated than the developing world. So your time is important, and time and energy. And your skills are very important that you can share. You can educate other people who are less educated than you, or definitely, a lot of people help financially to different organizations, or who are helping in those developing worlds. So you can do your time, your skills, your money, any ways you can support. You can create that balance again in the world. And also, it's important today because when there are a lot of injustices happening in the world, we need to help each other so we can overcome those injustices, and everyone should feel equal, everyone should feel supported, respected, and equals, right? So that way, there will be no violence, there will be no terrorism, there will be no extremism. So that's the, whatever you can do, always do good. That's the main reason. You use your skills and technology, and support your brothers and sisters everywhere in the world.
For sure, for sure. Thank you so much, everyone. Let's give a hand for our panel.